Welcome. I'm Travis.
And I'm Tyler, and this is Strategies for Success, a show that explores many topics while aiming to equip listeners with simple and practical lessons you can use in your everyday life.
Now join us on our journey as we reach for the impossible. Hey guys, and welcome to Strategies for Success. This is Trav.
My name's Tyler.
Today we are talking about the importance of a community. Tyler, what do you think what does that mean to you?
Community means it's probably a big group. It doesn't have to be huge, but it's going to be multiple people that are doing the same thing, or at least in the same area, something like that. You can have a literal community. It's people that live around you. You could have a community and you like the same hobbies or the same sports team, something like that.
There you go. So here's what the dictionary says. It says it's a group of people living in the same place or having particular characteristics in common. So let's break that down to a little better English. A feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals.
Yep.
So the community, right? We've talked about this a few times, but I was sharing a story with Tyler. And years ago, I was challenged through a book that I was reading to find people who are successful in your community. It could be your city, it could be your town, it could be in your church, it could be at work. But find people with the same common goals, the same common interest, and build on that. And so it said, listen, you run with people who have a bad attitude, you tend to have a bad attitude. You run with people who are positive, and you're going to be positive. And the guy that was in this book, he said, you never see eagles running around with turkey buzzards, right? The eagles are soaring in the sky with eagles. And so it really put a challenge to me. And so I started looking for people who had been in their particular field. And I'm not talking about equipment sales like that I was in. So what I looked for people who were in sales, because that was in common. But I looked for very, very successful. So some of the categories I found a lady that had been in radio sales for 30 plus years. And she had been very, very successful at her job. And she had survived several changes in ownership at the radio station. So I put her in my list of people I wanted to ask. I got one of our reps. And then I found a guy that was doing window sales, and he was the top window sales guy in like several states around here. And so I picked these people and I said, hey, I would like to start a breakfast club where we go meet for breakfast, random place. We can all pick up the tab. You don't have to put the pressure on where one person's buying. When you're in a group of successful people, a lot of times people want to get a little ego out there and they're like, let me buy. And you get the little grab the check. But just say, hey, look, we're all going to buy breakfast. We're just going to go and we're going to chat about our areas. How's business going? How's things doing? And I would even go as far as to say, with kind of the community, me and Tyler and some of the guys that with the boys mentorship, the boys ministry program, that's kind of a brotherhood in the community that we kind of work in. And There's a lot of times where Tyler will call me and say, hey, how's things going at work? Oh, it's been slow. How are you guys doing? And we build off of that. So community, you want to have people that are going to push you to be more successful in whatever area that's where you want to focus.
Yep, exactly. I've heard the saying that there's been a lot of good leaders that I've heard them say they want to surround themselves with a lot of people in the room and say that they're the dumbest person in the room. So it's kind of a funny way of saying it, but basically it just means they're surrounding themselves with people who are smarter than they are, or who they view that are smarter than they are, so that they can make sure they make the best decision. Now, I heard recently with President Trump, it was actually Vice President Vance who was talking about it, but someone was asking him about President Trump's leadership, and he said one way that he is so in touch with people and helps in his decision making is, he said he's always asking people their opinions on things, always asking people what they think. So that could be someone in power. He said he'll be walking by, and sometimes it's someone that's one of the groundskeepers at the White House or something, but he'll ask him what he thinks about it. And as he's asked these people in these different fields, ask these people that have all these different perspectives on things, he can get a better grasp of the community and all the people that are going to be affected by his decision. Now, just like Travis was saying, sometimes you may make a decision and you don't really realize the impact it's going to make on somebody from that community because you're not really in touch with them. So, you know, circling back to trying to find a community that pushes you to be better, trying to find a community that gives you different perspectives and lets you hear different sides of the story, but also pushes you to be better, helps you make more informed decisions, and just ultimately grow as a person.
So, in studying this and reading a little bit, how do you build a community? So, you're looking for people that have common goals, common interests, and you're going to look for areas of connection. So, that might be having a cookout at your house, inviting these people over. And sometimes you got to get a buy-in. So, hey, I got free food. There's your buy-in. Oh,
Yep.
we're over there. We're coming.
Yep.
And then, so there you've made a place for connection, or hey, we're having lunch, or hey, I like meeting around food. If you ever run into me in person, you'll see why. But I love eating. I love good food. So that's a good one. Maybe it's meeting in a common place. A lot of people let faith be the connection. So like church, maybe it's at a social event. Maybe it's even at your kid's school, but you're making a connection, and you got to have the opportunity to make that connection, to find these people. And then you identify your common goals, and then you start to meet. And I think we've talked about this in previous episodes, but you got to be consistent.
Yeah, being consistent. But when you meet with those people now, like Travis was talking about, they're from different industries, but they're all selling something basically. So talking to those people that are selling different types of things, you're going to encounter different, challenges to get their products sold or their services sold. So hearing the challenges they face may open your mind up to another, how they overcame that obstacle, overcame that challenge will open your mind up and let you see a new way that something can be done. And, we've talked about this many times, but there's a lot of different ways to be successful, a lot of different ways to reach your goals. So hearing different people's perspective from your community or those people that you share common goals with, it will help you be a more rounded person and a more informed decision maker, and just help you reach your goals.
One thing that I've realized in the last several years is our businesses are about 45 miles apart, probably.
Yep.
And they're really in two different communities. They're really in two different, the sales opportunities are different. From us being in more of an urban type, bigger city area. And Tyler doing a little bit more with ag, and that's changing every day with several big industries going in up there. But with all that being said, I'll be talking to Tyler and I'll be like, hey, what's going on? Oh, well, this is going on. And I've noticed there's a lot of commonality, with the things that are going on in Pryor versus what's going on in Tulsa. And I noticed something the other day. My sister does a lot of set up booths in a lot of these antique malls. And I was talking to Tyler, and we had kind of a rainy, overcast day. And I'm thinking to myself, we had 2 weeks where it'd been pretty slow, but it'd been rainy and overcast. And so I talked to you, and you were like, yeah, it's been slow here too. And so sometimes you get to thinking like the whole world's collapsing around you, but you realize that's not the case, because you get to see a bigger picture when you have the community. And then I got to talking to my sister, and she said, yeah, you know what? It ain't just tractor sales or lawnmower sales. All the booth sales have been slow. And so I realized there was a buying trend when the weather was a little bit gloomy, and I got to look at that. And I noticed that when people are when they're happy, they're more tended, to go out and buy stuff. But I would have never put two and two together. That might seem obvious to you, but it's real easy, like the old saying goes, not to be able to see the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
And you get to thinking, what are we doing wrong? Why is it not busy? And then you start, well, okay, hang on, back up here. Let me get a bigger picture. And that community will help with the bigger picture.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this, the community can be defined or described in different ways, but what we're hoping that you will find is like-minded people with like goals that will help you, push you to strive for your goals. Now, we mentioned a while back about mentors. This is a little bit different from mentors. Mentors is kind of the bigger picture view.
It's one-on-one.
Yeah, it's one-on-one. It's maybe a little more intentional on, you can ask them questions and they can answer them. You're probably going to have certain questions before you ever even meet with them. Already have those questions in mind, and you're hoping to find answers for that because that's what's been challenging you. Community is going to be more like a everyday, boots on the ground type of person that's going to work hand in hand right beside you, and you guys are going to try to accomplish the same things together. And you want to have somebody that pushes you to do that And so I think back to sports, my teammates, this would be my teammates. Basically, we're trying to push each other to get better, and we're both doing the same thing side by side.
The mentor, we talked about this, to where you're looking for someone with experience, and where when you're building this community, it might be someone your same age is dealing with the same stuff that you're dealing with right now.
Could be younger than you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So we've laid out some words of wisdom here, and now it's time for the challenge.
So the challenge is to build a community, build a group of people like Travis's breakfast group of like-minded people trying to accomplish similar things. Build a group of those people, come up with a reason. It could be the food, whatever you want it to be, but come up with a common ground where you can meet, a destination or something that you're going to meet around, and maybe an activity that you're going to do that you guys are all interested in. That will help get people there. That will help it be more consistent. But that's the key right there. Be consistent, consistently meet with this community. And over time, as you are successful in building this community, more and more people want to be involved, and it can really grow from there. But all that to say, build a group, build a strong community to help you improve yourself.
I know we've already thrown out the challenge, but I wanted to remind you, you told me a story earlier about the mice.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that you share that, because it really tells the importance of having a community. The mentor is a big part of this, but when you have a community, every one of us go through struggles and hard times.
Yeah.
And when you got a brotherhood, or you've got, it might be we mentioned this already, but it might be a bowling league. It might be some guys that go golfing together, but you got to have that guy that says, "Hey man, are you okay? Can I help you along the way? What can I do for you?"
Yep. And I'll tell my story real quick. So it was a study on addiction, and there was one mouse in this small confined area. There's two little cups of water. One of them was just water. The other one had drugs in it. And they observed this mouse over time for addiction research. And over time, the mouse was in there by itself, and it just drank the water with the drugs in it, and just kept drinking it until eventually it died. And so the scientists were kind of concluding that, showing that you can get addicted to something pretty easily, and that you'll go so far as to ultimately let it kill you. So another scientist, researcher, he said, I don't think that's very conclusive. So he came up with a study, but he had a little bit different setup. So he had several mice in a small confined area, but he had several wheels and had several little things that they could do, but he also had the 2 cups of water. So the difference was there's a lot more mice this time, so community, and there's stuff for them to do, activities. So like we were talking about, community and activities, 2 things that go hand in hand together. But what they observed is that the second experiment, the community of mice, they didn't even drink the water, because they had stuff to do and they had other people to be around. So they just drank the water that was good, and they didn't succumb to the addiction, and they didn't fall down the bad trail. That they had someone there for them, and they had stuff to do.
Yeah, and I think that is key. So guys, we've given you some words of wisdom. We've given you the challenge, and now it's time.
Now it is time to execute. Thank you for learning with us.
Join us next time as we reach for the impossible. I'm Travis.
And I'm Tyler.
And this is
Strategies for Success.